STEM fans, are you ready? Let's hear it for the world-class NASA STEM Stars team. From NASA centers across the country, we present Jennifer Scott Williams.
Hello and welcome to NASA STEM Stars. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Adeline Deinhardt, and when I'm not sitting here in my home office, you would find me at Langley Research Center. And today I am joined by Jennifer Scott Williams out of Johnson Space Center, and we are so excited to have you and get to talk to you and hear about Jennifer's journey to NASA and what she does now. But today, before we get started, we'll go over a few things. So first, definitely send us questions. We're going to try and get as many of your questions answered today as we can. So if you just send those in through the chat feature down below in YouTube, we will do as many of those as possible. And then also, if you want to keep watching STEM Stars in the future, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you get all of our updates as we go along. But before we get started, today we're first going to meet the team. So you're going to talk to us. We're going to talk about STEM careers, answer as many of your questions as we can, and then we're going to give you a mission to do from home. And then finally, we'll tell you what's up next on STEM Stars so we can get you excited for our next one. So first, Jennifer, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are?
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me. A little bit about myself. I was born in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and I have been in the military. My dad was an Air Force officer in the military, and so we moved around quite a bit, really domestically, which is kind of surprising. I never went overseas. But in the military, we moved around to a few different places, and in doing that, I learned how to make friends in different locations. So I went to high school in Panama City, Florida. So go Bay High Tornadoes. And from there, I went to college in Atlanta, Georgia. In Atlanta, Georgia, I attended Spelman College, and I got a bachelor's degree in mathematics. And I also attended the Georgia Institute of Technology, where I got a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. Those were through the AUC, Atlanta University Center, dual degree engineering program. Once I completed those studies, I went on to the University of Houston to get my master's in electrical engineering. And so I've been in Houston ever since I graduated college, and been working at NASA ever since. So it's been quite a road.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it. Did you always know that NASA was where you wanted to be, or was it something you kind of found through your path?
It's funny. No, I actually never thought I would be working at NASA. I never imagined I would be an engineer doing the things that I am doing even today. So when I was in, I guess it was elementary school or grade school, I always knew that I like to make things, take things apart, and build new things. But I never really knew that that was what engineers did. So I thought that if I just like to make things and design things, I would be a fashion designer. So I thought I was going to be a fashion designer dressing the stars in Hollywood. That was my that was my goal and dream as a child. And then when I went on to high school and I was introduced to different kinds of engineering, I thought I would go into textile because I still kind of had that thought process in the back of my mind where I could still design maybe fabrics or something of that nature. And so, no, I never thought that NASA was in my sight. I thought I was just going to do something different, something bigger. I don't know. I didn't know what I was going to do.
That is definitely a huge transition. So how exactly did you end up in engineering then, or even at NASA? How did?
Wow. So, I in high school, I was introduced to engineering through a program called MIT, Minority Introduction to Engineering. And so, through that program at Auburn University, they took us all around to the different schools. So we could go to the textile engineering program, we could go to the chemical engineering program, all the different types of engineering programs that they offered. And so um, I really got excited when I saw students in an electrical engineering class using breadboards. So they had their circuits all set up and they were actually making lights dance on the breadboard. And I thought that was the most genius thing. I thought that was the coolest thing I had ever imagined. So I decided to go into electrical engineering. And so there I was like, well, okay, I think I can pursue electrical engineering. So when I went to Spelman, I had that path in my head. I'm going to go do a degree. I'm going to go to Auburn because that's where I was introduced to engineering, and I'm going to be a textile engineer or something else. I didn't know from there. So then when I got to Spelman and I realized I was in that 5 year program and I was running just a little bit behind, I said, let me just stay at Georgia Tech. It's right across the road, it's right down the street, so I can get all of my requirements completed in time. And so in the meantime, I did different internships, which I highly recommend, that allowed me to have exposure in the workplace of what engineers actually do. And at Spelman, they actually heavily recruited us for like in investment banking roles and consulting roles. And so in doing that, I thought, well, maybe I'll become an investment banker and make real money or something like that. From there, I just kind of looked at different options. It turns out we had a couple of people from NASA come to Atlanta and talk with us about opportunities at NASA. And it so happens that they were two African American engineers, one female, one male. And I looked at them and I said, oh, maybe this is something I can actually do. NASA would look really good on my resume. So I'll go work for NASA for about 5 years and then go into private industry and make that real money, right? It, it's been almost 20 years. It's 19 years this past month. And so I'm still here. I've had such a good time and such a wonderful career, and I've done so many amazing things that I figured I'd just hang out and stay and see what else I could do.
NASA really hooks you in. I know that I started
Sure
with NASA
did.
as an intern, and I did 3 internships before I got hired on full time, and they just can't seem to get rid of me. I keep finding new roles in NASA. I love it.
Isn't that something? That's fabulous.
Do you have a favorite NASA memory or a favorite project you've worked on then?
Oh man, I've worked on so many cool projects and with so many cool people. I think my favorite memory is working in mission control. So I was hired as a space shuttle flight controller, and so that was in 2001. And so the space shuttle was going strong, and that program was very strong. And so, as a flight controller in the space shuttle program, I was hired on as an instrumentation and communications officer. And so, I went all the way through all the flows till I got to the front room. And that being the sort of culmination of all the training that I had received to date. And I think I was actually the first African American female to be certified in the front room in that position. And so I knew that it was important. I knew it was something that was going to change my life, and it did. So just sitting on console next to the flight director, commanding the cameras on the vehicle, and just in that moment and in that environment, doing something that made a difference. Those are the best memories.
That's amazing. I can't even imagine. And so fun to have those memories to look back on. So
Absolutely.
you're obviously not a flight controller now. So what is
No.
it that you do for NASA in your current role?
So Yes, in my current role. So now I moved to the International Space Station program, and as a member of the International Space Station program, I work in what we call OZ, and OZ is our mail code. That's really all it is. And so what we do is we make sure that people are able to fly their experiments in space. And so my job title is a research portfolio manager, and it's an RPM, or research portfolio manager, is a person that helps researchers, scientists, engineers, or even people in business fly experiments in space. And so we can help people from ideation, which is coming up with that brand new idea, to getting that idea come to fruition, making sure that there's money available to get that investigation, what we call an investigation or payload, on board, that we can get the crew to operate that investigation or payload or experiment while they're on board, and make sure that the scientist, engineer, or company is able to receive the information back. So that could mean getting samples back, that could mean getting data downloaded. It just kind of depends on what the purpose of the investigation really is. So if you kind of compare it to football, American football, right? We ensure that your project or your investigation, your payload, your experiment, is carried through from kickoff to touchdown. That's one of my colleagues' terms, right? And so we got a team of people that all work together all across the nation at all the different centers to make sure that happens. And so that's what a RPM essentially does. So.
I love the analogy. I think that's so relatable for, I'm sure, a lot of the people that we have watching. So, how long then about does it take from kickoff to touchdown, or does it
Mhm.
vary greatly?
Right. So it does vary, actually, and shout out to Pete Hasbrook who came up with that. So it does actually vary. There are some investigations or experiments that are very complex, and it takes a considerable amount of science verification. You do a lot of testing before you even get it ready to fly, and we want to make sure that the hardware that the investigation is going to go into works properly, and that the scientist is able to get the results that they're looking for. So it could take a while just to get it ready to go. Or it could be fairly quick, because if it's something like a technology demonstration where all we want to do is fly a widget or some hardware or some kind of small thing, we can easily just put it in a container, put it in a package, or what we call a crew cargo transfer bag, fly it to space, let it operate, let it fail if it needs to, if that's the goal, and bring it back. So it really just depends on what people are looking to accomplish.
Do you have a favorite experiment that you've gotten to help get sent up to the ISS?
Ooh, I can't play favorites. Ooh, there's so many. So I'm responsible for life science investigations, and so anything that has to do with plant research or cellular biology or microbiology or even animal research, I've kind of had some involvement with, but I'm mostly involved with cell research and microbiology. I think the most significant investigations that I was involved in was actually rodent research. So we do fly rodents in space, we fly mice in space, and just pulling that together, just ensuring that the mice are properly cared for, ensuring that we are meeting all of the requirements for animal care, that is pretty complex, and it takes a lot of people to pull that off. And so I think that is probably the most in-depth and significant project that I have been involved with.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure there's a lot of moving parts that go into any experiment, but definitely something that complex, I'm sure. So we do have a few questions coming in, so I'm going to ask
Okay.
some of those. So one of those would be, do you have any mentor that really stood out in your career and helped you get to where you are today?
I've actually had several mentors. I think it is so important to get involved with the mentoring program at your institution or at your school or at your work. And as soon as I started working here at NASA, I made sure to find a mentor. And she's still my mentor today. So I'm going to give a shout out to Donna Blackshear Reynolds, my very first mentor here at Johnson Space Center. But I've had some amazing people in my life, Sarah Murray, just people who have helped shape me in my career, people who have given me excellent advice. And so it has played a huge role in my career and in my progress and in my growth and maturity, even as a person. So I thank them. There's just those few that I named, but there's so many others that have played an important role in my life and in my career. So I appreciate them.
Always having mentors is a huge benefit in all aspects of I think our work and our careers. But
Mhm.
as a lot of students are going back to school across the country today, we're facing a lot of different challenges. Did you face any challenges that you overcame that were of significance to you that you'd like to share about when you were going through school? Or
You know, I have faced quite a few challenges in my curriculum. I happened to choose one of the most complicated and complex engineering majors. And I chose it because it was cool, it was interesting to me, but because it was hard. So there were many a day where I sat and said, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm gonna make it. I need to pass this class. One class in particular, it was called Random Signals, and that name just gives makes my heart stop even today. I think my first exam, I completely bombed it. I mean, I failed that exam so bad, and I didn't know what to do because it was a required course for my major. And so all I did at that point was pick my face up off the floor and get to work. So I had to study, 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 and I asked friends for help. I got into study groups. I fasted, prayed, and on my next exam, I ended up getting one of the highest grades in the class. So it really just speaks to having that perseverance, having that diligence, and trying to keep going even when you feel discouraged. So, absolutely.
I think that's huge and so important for so many people to hear. I mean, getting to NASA is extremely difficult, but getting anywhere is extremely difficult. So just making sure that you follow those passions and dreams and really push forward. I know that I wouldn't
Right.
have gotten here if I wouldn't have overcome many a challenge as well.
I know. I
Our
absolutely understand.
our next question is about college and how did you choose your college? I mean, you said that it was one that was close to you, but were there any other factors that went into your decision? Or
I'm so
anything that
glad you
other people should
asked.
take into consideration?
Yes, I'm so glad you asked. So I'm gonna date myself. When I was growing up, there was a TV show called The Cosby Show, and then there was a follow-on, sort of like a roll-off of The Cosby Show called A Different World, and it was basically one of the children of The Cosby Show went off to college, and that college was called Hillman. And I just loved that show so much. And when I realized that that show was filmed on an actual college campus called Spelman College, I was immediately intrigued. So I did a little bit of research and I discovered that it is an outstanding institution for African American women. And so I said, I'm sold. That's it. That's totally it. And then when I discovered that I could still pursue my engineering goal by doing the dual degree program, that's locked it in for me. I mean, I applied at other schools just because that's what you should do, but I absolutely had my eye and my sight set on Atlanta, Georgia. And so that was one of the major contributing features for me to select Spelman.
I love that. It's such a fun story to look back on too.
Oh yeah.
So in terms of degrees, what types of degrees do you know of, at least in your journey to NASA, that people need to work at NASA, or do you even need a college degree?
Oh, that's an excellent question. A lot of people think that in order to work at NASA, you must be STEM, you must be science, technology, engineering, or mathematics. And that is absolutely not the case. Now, you should get a college degree and you need to maintain a 3.0 average in college in order to come work for NASA, and you have to be a US citizen. So, those are the main criteria that people look for when they're looking to select people as civil servants into federal service for NASA. But you can be a lawyer, you can be a doctor, you can be a marine biologist. I've seen people with MBAs, regular, the bachelor's degrees in business, bachelor's degrees in economics, you name it. There are people with all kinds of backgrounds here at NASA. So pursue my suggestion for people who are interested in working for NASA is pursue what interests you most, right? Pursue what you're best at and what you enjoy. And there is in all likelihood going to be a position for you at NASA, especially as we're moving toward Artemis and a lot of the other programs where we're looking at exploration. We need people of all different backgrounds here.
And I think that really resonates with your story as well. And you really followed your passions, and it ended up a little differently than where you thought, but I think
Right.
I think it got you to where you were supposed to be in the end.
Absolutely.
So then our next question would be, oops, sorry, computer froze a little bit there. We're all working
No
from
problem.
home too. I know that
Right.
we all had some tech challenges this morning, which I'm sure our viewers can very much relate to as we're in this new age. But
Right.
do you have any favorite stories that you really want to share, or anything that you really think that people might not know about what you've gotten to do or experience at NASA?
So at NASA, work life at NASA is so varied and so much what you make it. Honestly, I have done so many things. So, as a research portfolio manager, I talked about what we do, but what do we really do? We travel, we attend conferences, we go to different meetings, we collaborate across the agency, and we collaborate with our international partners. But work life at NASA, it is so exciting. It's just like what it says on the slide. It's busy. It's interesting. One of the funnest things that I have been able to do is fly on the what we used to call the Vomit Comet. So it's basically it's a aircraft that simulates microgravity by doing various parabolas. And so one of the images that you probably saw there was me floating with one of my colleagues, and we were on that zero G flight, and we were passengers. We weren't doing science, and we weren't, one of the official members of the team. So we were essentially cargo, right? So we used that as an opportunity to play a little bit, have a little bit of fun. So we did a couple of little flips. I got in trouble for that, and just had an amazing time. You see an image of me standing there next to one of the astronauts that's in training at the Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory, which is an amazing facility. He was just doing a training exercise, and I was able to kind of sneak in on a tour and meet up with the astronauts that are training. There's just been so many wonderful experiences working with my colleagues, working with members across the agency and all over our center. Those are the best opportunities and experiences that I have had while working at NASA.
So, on that note, have you gotten to see any other NASA centers during your time? Have you gotten to
Oh, yes,
travel to
I
see
sure
any of
have.
them?
I sure have. All of them but a few. There's 10 NASA centers across the agency, and I've been to, I believe, I want to say eight of them. I want to say
You're
eight,
getting pretty close.
eight or
Almost
nine.
all of them.
Yes, yes, almost all. I haven't been to Dryden, or what's Armstrong now. So I think that's the only one. But yes, I make sure I get around.
Yes, and all of our NASA centers do very different work too. So I know that I enjoy getting to see all the different work that we do across the agency.
Oh, yes, it's so important because I am here at Johnson Space Center where we are an operations hub, right? So we manage the spacecraft, we handle anything having to do with the astronauts. So we are very much ops. But we have research centers across the agency too, and they are focused on the real in depth science. So depending on where you are, depending on what kind of field of work that you're looking to do, just like I said before, there's a spot for you. You can study earth science or weather up in Langley or Goddard, or you can study life sciences and propulsion and other activities, things that you would want to look at Ames, or definitely propulsion and rockets like at Marshall Space Flight Center. So there's something for everyone at NASA.
That's so true. And I know that I've worked at two different centers through my time, but we're getting close to the end. So do you have any last final thoughts or anything you would like to share with our viewers before we send them with their own mission to do at home?
I think it's important to have balance. And so, we talked a lot about NASA, and we talked a lot about the technical work that I've done and all of the different activities and things that I've been able to participate in. But in my personal life, I try to make sure that I maintain a healthy balance of mind, body, and spirit, right? And so I'm always trying to learn something new. I love to bake, right? And so, um, in doing that, I love learning new recipes and building and creating things. And so that's helping to preserve the mind. And then the body. I am a racer. I love to run and I love to exercise, right? So I've done 7 half marathons. And if there's a challenge, then I'm definitely trying to take it. So make sure that and I have to keep running so that I can keep up with the baking, right? So so just I love to travel and I volunteer in my community. And so I want to make sure that our viewers and make sure that folks at home recognize that we are total people. Here at NASA, there are things that we're doing to ensure that we fulfill the NASA mission and fulfill NASA's vision and goals. But we are people outside of work as well, and we do fun things and work in the community as well. And so I think that's really important to make sure that you have balance in your life. And that's all I've got. Thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that that's something super important that we share with everyone. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that. And I think that's a great way to wrap up. But for all of you at home now, I would like to encourage you to continue your learning today that you did all about the International Space Station and some of our research that goes on. And so I'm tasking you to go and do this demonstrations surface tension activity and video. So watch the video, do the activity, and share back with us and let us know what you think, what you learned, what you would like to do, and continue. And then definitely make sure to tune in next week as we host our next episode of NASA STEM Stars in Espanol. And we will be meeting with the Deputy Certification Manager for Boeing with the Artemis program, and that will be Wednesday, September 15th at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. And so definitely make sure that you subscribe so that you can get all of our updates as we keep going. And we can't wait to see you next time. And again, thank you so much, Jennifer, for joining us. And I know that I learned a lot today, and I'm sure all of our viewers did as well. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. Y'all keep fighting, keep striving for your dreams. You'll do great.